area. I had heard a lot of good things about it and decided that it would be fun to check out. I gathered a bunch of my friends and made reservations for a Friday night. If you don't know what TopGolf is, it's pretty much this big golfing range where you can hit balls, eat food, and drink. Our reservation was for the 4th floor, which was awesome because we were very high up and the view was amazing. We were playing for maybe an hour when we started to notice the people next to us were pretty drunk. I could tell they were a couple of some sort, but what made me notice them was when I heard the one guy say to the girl, "She's a bitch," but he said it in an angry and drunk way. I could see that she was almost in tears. I wanted to go over and say something, but I figured it would be best if I didn't intervene. Some more time goes by, and that's when we hear shouting, full-blown shouting and screaming. It was coming from the couple right next to us. Both the guy and the girl were in each other's faces, yelling at the top of their lungs. I saw a few of the employees notice the commotion and saw them starting to walk over to them. But before that could happen, the guy suddenly grabbed the girl by her shoulders and threw her over the edge. Now, there are nets at TopGolf to prevent anyone from accidentally falling, but this guy threw her so hard and with such force that she flew over the nets. I watched in horror as she plummeted to the ground. I was in complete shock. Then the guy saw us and started swinging at my friends. It was this huge brawl. Eventually, the fight was broken up by security that was there. The man was detained and even charged. The girl who fell over the edge thankfully lived, but I think she had a bunch of broken bones and a concussion. I don't know what they were arguing about, but no one deserves what happened to that girl. That was my first experience ever at TopGolf, and I hope that dude learns to control his anger in the future. Otherwise, he'll end up actually killing someone next time. A year ago, I used to work as a waitress at TopGolf. My job was to serve all the drinks and food orders to the guests. It wasn't a bad job by any means, and the tips I got were higher than any other place that I had worked previously. We would have the occasional guest who couldn't handle their liquor and would cause a scene, but they were definitely far and few in between. However, when I was working there, we had this one guy who I will never forget, but for horrifying reasons. It was a Wednesday, and on Wednesdays, we ran a lot of specials and deals to help drive the business. I was serving a group of guys who all seemed to be work buddies. They came in, got their golf clubs, and started having at it. Nothing out of the ordinary. Their drink orders were large, and they were ordering heavy stuff like tequila and Jameson shots. Part of my job also is to recognize when guests are getting too drunk and to cut that off before it becomes a situation. Well, one guy in the group seemed to be getting very drunk very quickly. By the time I was bringing their third rounds of drinks, he was getting very touchy with me. I would place his drink in front of him, and he would grab my hand and tell me how much of a playboy and a stud he is, and how I'd be lucky if I ever got in bed with a guy like him. Mind you, he was pretty unattractive to me in general, and in my mind, he had no shot in hell with me. Unfortunately, guests get handsy sometimes, and I just brushed it off that he was drunk and being stupid. Their time was coming to an end, and I brought their last rounds of drinks. This time, that guy stands up and hands me his phone. He told me to put my number in it, and maybe he would call me later. I politely declined, and just lied about having a boyfriend. He laughed at that, and said what he doesn't know won't hurt. I left the bill, and didn't say a word. That group all ended up leaving around the same time that I was getting off of work. I clocked out, said goodbye to my coworkers, and headed for my car. I get to my car, and I see that same drunk guy in the parking lot. He sees me and starts walking to me. I felt like my stomach was going to explode. He comes up, hammered, and this time doesn't ask, but demands that I give him my phone number. I didn't see any of his friends around and figured he had purposely stayed behind so he could try and talk to me. This time I was more blunt and harsh. I told him to get the hell away from me and I would never give him my phone number. The guy was pissed. He suddenly turned around and ran to his car. He popped his trunk and I saw him take out a golf club. He started running back to me with it above his head and he was screaming. He was swinging it wildly, and I feared for my life. I ran back into work and told my coworkers what was going on. We watched as he started bashing my car. My coworkers were already dialing 911. Then we watched this man get into his car and try to drive away. But I guess he was so drunk that he hit one of the light poles in the parking lot. When the cops got there, he was arrested for the damage that he did to my car and drinking and driving, which serves him right, because he was the creepiest man I'd ever come across in my life. I fear for the woman he ends up with. So, this is a story that I will never forget. A few months back, me and a few of my friends decided that we're going to go to TopGolf and have some fun. We've been there many times, and even though it is pretty expensive, the fun you have with good friends is always worth it. We were up on the second floor, and if you've ever been to TopGolf, there's a bunch of mini games that you can play. We decided to go with the Angry Birds game. You pretty much hit the ball, and it virtually knocks down the buildings on your screen. The night was going good. It was my turn up next, and I grabbed my club, getting ready to hit the ball. But before I hit it, I saw down in the green a man walking across it. This took me by surprise, because you're not allowed to be on the green for obvious reasons. One being you could get hit with a golf ball. At first I thought maybe it was an employee, but they seemed to be in regular clothes. Then I noticed that I wasn't the only one who saw this. Other people who were there were also pointing at the man walking across the green. As we all watched, we saw a few security guards start to run out to him. I thought it was kind of funny, in a stupid way, and me and my friends were all laughing at the situation. But then, we heard this loud bang go off. It was the sound of a gun firing. I quickly realized that it came from the man that was on the green. He seemed to be shooting in our direction. Chaos ensued. Employees came up to us and started yelling that we needed to exit the building immediately. My friends and I ran out of the TopGolf and to our cars in the parking lot. By the time we got there, we saw police cars speeding in and blocking our exits. To make a long story short, the guy who was walking on the green was an ex-employee of TopGolf. Apparently, he thought he was unfairly fired, got drunk, and showed up at the place with a gun, ready to enact revenge. Police were able to maintain the situation, but since me and my friends had witnessed it, we had to stay a while to answer a bunch of questions and fill out reports. All in all, it was a terrifying experience. The one gunshot that he let off thankfully didn't hit anyone. That location closed down a while until everything was sorted out. Since it's been reopened, me and my friends have returned and there have been no issues. I hope that it stays that way.